Episode 22, Supplemental A, Theses on the Constituent Assembly, written by Vladimir Ilyich Lenin, the 11th or 12th of December, 1917. Published in issue number 213 of the newspaper Pravda, 26th of December, 1917. 1. The demand for the convocation of the Constituent Assembly entered fully justifiably into the program of revolutionary social democracy, since in a bourgeois republic, a Constituent Assembly is the highest form of democracy, and since the imperialist republic, with Kerensky at the head, in creating the pre-parliament, was preparing the falsification of elections along with a series of violations of democracy. 2. In putting forth the demand for the convocation of the Constituent Assembly, revolutionary social democracy, from the very beginning of the Revolution of 1917, repeatedly emphasized that a republic of Soviets is an even higher form of democracy than a conventional bourgeois republic with a Constituent Assembly. 3. For the transition from a bourgeois order to a socialist one, for the dictatorship of the proletariat, a republic of Soviets, of workers, soldiers, and peasants' deputies, is not only a form of a higher kind of democratic institutions, in comparison with a conventional bourgeois republic with a constituent assembly as its crown, but is also the only form capable of securing the most painless transition to socialism. 4. The convocation of the Constituent Assembly in our revolution, based on lists drawn up in the middle of October 1917, is happening under such conditions which exclude the possibility of the correct expression of the will of the people in general, and of the toiling masses especially, by way of elections to this Constituent Assembly. 5. First of all, a proportional system of voting gives true expression to the will of the people only when party lists correspond to the actual division of the people into the party groups reflected in these lists. We have had, as is known, a party which, from May through October, had most of its supporters in the people, and especially in the peasantry, the Party of Socialist Revolutionaries, and which gave united lists for the Constituent Assembly in the middle of October 1917, but split in November 1917, after the elections to the Constituent Assembly, but before its convocation. Due to this, there is not and cannot be even a formal correspondence between the will of the voters in their mass and the composition of those elected to the Constituent Assembly. 6. Second of all, an even more important, not formal, not juridical, but a socio-economic, class-based source of the disparity between the will of the people, and especially the toiling classes, on the one hand, and the composition of the Constituent Assembly, on the other, is the circumstance that elections to the Constituent Assembly took place when the overwhelming majority of the people could not yet have known the entire weight and significance of the October, the Soviet, the proletarian peasant revolution, which began the 25th of October, 1917, that is, after the adoption of lists of candidates for the Constituent Assembly. 7. The October Revolution, in conquering power for the Soviets, in tearing political domination out of the hands of the bourgeoisie and transferring it into the hands of the proletariat and poorest peasantry, is, before our very eyes, experiencing the progressive stages of its development. 8. It began with the victory on the 24th to 25th of October in the capital, when the Second All-Russian Congress of Soviets of Workers and Soldiers' Deputies, this avant-garde of the proletarians and the most politically active section of the peasantry, gave predominance to the party of the Bolsheviks and put it in power. 9. The revolution then, in the course of November and December, took over the entire mass of the army and the peasantry, which was expressed first and foremost in the removal and re-election of old command organizations, army committees, gubernatorial peasant committees, the Central Executive Committee of the All-Russian Soviet of Peasants' Deputies, etc., which had been expressing the outlived collaborationist stripe of the revolution, its bourgeois stage, not its proletarian stage, and which therefore inevitably must have quit the scene under the pressure of the deepest and widest popular masses. 10. This powerful movement of the exploited masses toward the reformation of the leading organs of their organizations has even now not ended, in the middle of December 1917, and the Incomplete Railroad Workers' Congress is one of its stages. 11. The grouping of class forces in Russia in their class struggle, which is consequently coming together in deed, in November and December 1917, is fundamentally different than that which was able to find its expression in the party lists of candidates for the Constituent Assembly in the middle of October 1917. 12. The latest events in Ukraine, and partially also in Finland and Belarus, and also in the Caucasus, demonstrate in an equal manner the new grouping of class forces, which is happening in the process of the struggle between the bourgeois nationalism of the Ukrainian Rada, the Finnish Sejm, and so on the one hand, and Soviet power, the proletarian peasant revolution of each of these national republics, on the other. 13. Finally, the civil war begun by the Cadet Kaledin counter-revolutionary insurrection against Soviet authorities, against the workers' and peasants' government, has decisively sharpened the class struggle and taken away any possibility of resolving in a formally democratic way the sharpest questions placed by history before the peoples of Russia, and, first and foremost, before its working class and peasantry. 14. Only the complete victory of workers and peasants over the bourgeois and landowners' insurrection, which has found its expression in the Cadet Kaledin movement, only the merciless military suppression of this insurrection of slave owners is capable of securing in deed the proletarian peasant revolution. The course of events and development of the class struggle in the revolution has led to the point where the slogan, "All power to the Constituent Assembly," which does not account for the conquests of the worker and peasants' revolution, does not account for Soviet power, does not account for the decisions of the Second All-Russian Congress of Soviets of Workers and Soldiers Deputies, the Second All-Russian Congress of Peasants Deputies, etc. Such a slogan has become, in fact, a slogan of the cadets, the Kaledinites, and their accomplices. It has become clear to the entire nation that the Constituent Assembly, if it were to break with Soviet power, would be inevitably condemned to a political death. 15. The question of peace belongs to the number of particularly sharp questions of the people's lives. A truly revolutionary struggle for peace was begun in Russia only after the victory of the revolution on the 25th of October, and this victory bore its first fruits in the form of the publishing of secret arrangements, the conclusion of a truce, and the beginning of open negotiations for a general peace without annexations or retributions. The wide popular masses only now, fully and openly, are receiving the opportunity to see, indeed, the policy of revolutionary struggle for peace, and to study its results. During the elections to the Constituent Assembly, the popular masses were deprived of this opportunity. It is clear that even from this facet of the matter, the disparity between the composition of elections to the Constituent Assembly and the actual will of the people in the question of concluding the war is inevitable. 16. The aggregate of the circumstances laid out above gives the result that the Constituent Assembly, being convoked on the basis of lists of parties which existed before the proletarian peasant revolution, in the condition of the rule of the bourgeoisie, inevitably leads to a clash with the will and interests of the toiling and exploited classes, which began on the 25th of October, a socialist revolution against the bourgeoisie. Naturally, the interests of this revolution stand above the formal rights of the Constituent Assembly, even if these formal rights had not been undermined by the absence in the law about the Constituent Assembly of the recognition of the right of the people to re-elections of their deputies at any time. 17. Any attempt, direct or indirect, to examine the question of the Constituent Assembly from the formal juridical side, in the bounds of a conventional bourgeois democracy, outside of the consideration of the class struggle and the Civil War, is a betrayal of the cause of the proletariat and a conversion to the point of view of the bourgeoisie. It is the unconditional duty of revolutionary social democracy to caution each and every individual about this mistake, into which some of the leaders of Bolshevism, who are unable to evaluate the October insurrection and the tasks of the dictatorship of the proletariat, are falling. 18. The only chance for a painless resolution of the crisis, which has been created by force of the disparity between the elections to the Constituent Assembly and the will of the people, as well as the interests of the toiling and exploited classes, is the realization, as wide and as rapid as possible, by the people of the right of re-election of members of the Constituent Assembly. The joining of the Constituent Assembly itself to the law of the Sikh about these re-elections, and the unequivocal announcement by the Constituent Assembly of the recognition of Soviet power, the Soviet Revolution, its policies in the question of peace, of land, and of worker control, and the decisive joining of the Constituent Assembly to the camp of the opponents of the Cadet Kaledin counter-revolution. 19. Outside of these conditions, the crisis connected with the Constituent Assembly can be resolved only by a revolutionary path, the path of the most energetic, rapid, firm, and decisive revolutionary measures from the side of Soviet power against the Cadet Kaledin counter-revolution, no matter by which slogans and institutions, even membership in the Constituent Assembly, this counter-revolution is seeking cover. Any attempt to tie the hands of Soviet power in this struggle would be an abetment to the counter-revolution.